So after qualifying at the Hungaroring, it was the Canadian Tyler Babin on pole position, and obviously the big news there is that by getting pole position, that meant that Evan Watson winning the silver class, because obviously, as you said, Pashov needed to get a full 27 points to be able to win the silver championship. So by Babin getting that pole position point, Watson now has sealed the silver championship. But anyway, Babin on pole position, absolute brilliant lap by him. By far the quickest car out there, puts him on pole. Alongside him, Watson, first out of the silver drivers, P2 overall. Once again, the final lap of qualifying is what did it for him. Absolutely brilliant final lap, and that put him just ahead of P3 and in on the front row of the grid. P3 was invitational entry Stanger, really good qualifying from him. 2 green Bentleys at the front of the grid there, and a good qualifying from him. Pashov had to settle for 4th, second out of the silver drivers. He'll be trying to get closer up to those front guys. So 2 Porsches, 2 Bentleys there on the front 2 rows of the grid. We can see which cars are strong at this track. P5, Nordell, second out of the pro drivers. Only 2 pro drivers racing today. He has to settle for P5. Behind him in P6, third out of the silver drivers, is another Bentley. The Bentley of Byrne, a good qualifying from him. He is the next best silver driver out of after Watson and Pashov. Behind him, Tan in 7th and Renault in 8th. Tan obviously yet to score an overall point. Maybe is today the day, starting 7th. That gives him a good possibility of doing so. And Renault in P8, 5th out of the silvers. He'll be looking to continue his good run of form. P9, Prevot, first out of the AM drivers. The only AM driver racing today, but really impressive result for him in qualifying. P9, qualifying within the top 10. Absolutely fantastic start to his race. Would he be able to score some overall points, which would be a big achievement considering he is an AM driver? We'd have to wait and see. Behind him, rounding off the top 10, is Bosman, South African in his brightly coloured Ferrari, rounds off the top 10, 6th out of the silver drivers. He'll be looking to move up the order. And on the final row are the 2 cars that could not put in qualifying laps due to grid penalties. Letzkeman and Robs, both of those on 6 behaviour warning points. 6 BWP points means that they start at the back of the grid and have hefty penalties to serve during the pit stops as well. So a 2-hour race though, they'll be looking to try and find their way up the order and score some points. So on the front row of the grid, this is the important place to look at. Babin and Watson, these 2 have not started alongside. We've seen Watson alongside Matthews, we've seen him alongside Pashov, but Babin and Watson, let's see how these 2 race together. The Porsche obviously has a good low end torque and good getaway, but we know the Bentley really good top speed, so it'll be interesting to see which car gets away the best as we wait for the lights and they go green. And like I said, the Porsche gets a good start, but Watson's Bentley got alongside him as they were coming down to turn 1. And watch Stanger's Bentley there, just out of shot. The green Bentley on the inside, tags the side of Babin, who goes into the side of Watson. Watson forced off track there, and you'll see in the background there, Babin stalls the car due to that as Watson almost comes together with Nordell. Nordell now going to try and find a way around the outside of the Bentley, but Watson giving him no room there, squeezing him out and saying, okay, I've already lost 1 position, but I'm not losing another. I know I'm one of the fastest guys on the track. I'm going to stay ahead. So Babin, the big loser at the start of that race there due to that collision. Stanger, the big winner, he makes up 2 positions. Watson gains 1 and loses 1. He has to settle for P2 as he tries to get going now with a bit of damage on that right-hand side of the Bentley, but hopefully it should be okay. Stanger P1, Watson P2. And coming over the curb there, very aggressively bouncing along there is the Mercedes of Nordell. He get ahead of Pashov, and then watch here, 3 wide, and the Bentley of Byrne tagged by the McLaren of Prevot, and Byrne, unfortunately for him, spins around and drops to the back of the grid. But just watch, coming into shot here, we'll see the purple Porsche of Lettmann also going very slowly. So a few incidents at the race start there. There, obviously, we saw Byrne's Bentley being spun around by Prevot. That one we saw very clearly. Not too sure what happened to this Porsche here of Letzkeman, who has quite a bit of damage on the front of his car. So let's have a look at the replay of the race start. and get a clear view of what happened. We look at the race start, looking onto the 699 Porsche of Babin. So like I said, you'll see as in the initial getaway is pretty good from the Porsche, and then like I said, the Bentleys and those straight line speeds. So Watson kind of gets alongside but stays nice out wide, but watch Stanger, he just brakes a lot later, goes up the inside, and 3 doesn't fit in, and well, Babin just in a Bentley sandwich there, has nowhere to go. And watch Lethkeman runs into the back of him, and then Robs runs into the back of him, which spins him sideways. Babin drops quite a way back. Robs kind of gets away with just the damage on the front of his car, and Lethkeman behind him once he gets going again, right at the back. So not a great start from the 2 back markers, as they, you know, with their penalties starting at the back of the grid, we're going to be hoping to get further forward, and unfortunately we're involved in those incidents. But obviously we saw Lethkeman going slowly later on, so we stay with this Porsche. A few cars today, I'll say, not running the usual liveries due to some issues. Obviously we have Lethkeman in the purple and Byrne not in his usual livery. But let's have an eye here on, keep an eye here on Lethkeman. As he comes over the curb, just watch the exit, just dips a tyre on the grass, loses the back end, and yeah, into the wall. And there up ahead you see Byrne trying to get going from his spin with Privot, and that was what happened back there. So those 3 are the big incidents of lap 1, and let's see how these drivers manage to recover. So Babin already now right all over the back of Tan in the Mercedes. The Mercedes not the strongest car on this track. As I said, you saw with the start of the grid, it was really Bentley and Porsches. Both make their time up in different areas of this track, but they seem to be the strongest 2 cars around here from the cars on the field. And watch Babin, they're having a little look, just can't quite find a way through Tan. He's been looking at him for the last few laps, but not being able to find a way through. But watch on the exit of this corner here. So he has a good entry here, and then into the next corner, hits that apex nice and early, gets on the power, swings over to the right, down the inside as they come down the hill here into turn 12, and he just slots himself up the inside, and position gained by Babin. He moves up, nice position there, and now he'll be looking to hunt for that high-vis Porsche of Renault up the road, and he'll be looking to try and recover all these positions he lost due to that collision at the start. And it wasn't much later, lap 9, and Babin already all over the back of a fellow Porsche teammate, Renault. And coming around this long right-hander, turn 5, into the chicane of 6 and 7. And just look at the curb that Babin takes compared to Renault. Slightly more aggressive across that, and he's right all over the back of that as we come into this kind of S's section of 8, 9, 10 complex, and he's just trying to force Renault into making a mistake. Tries to look alongside there, but there's not quite the room. Has to slot back in behind. Now, this is where he made the move on Tan, but this time not quite close enough. He's going to have to settle behind as they come through the 90-degree corner of turn 12. Now, 13, 14, this is where he has to try and line up and overtake down the straight to maybe have a look for a move into turn 1. And just watch Renault on the exit of the final corner here. Just a bit too eager on the throttle. And watch the back end here. The back end kicks out, gets a bit squirmy, and that makes it easy for Babin round the outside and makes the move even before they get to turn 1 and up into P5 now. So cars ahead will be P3 and 4, which are the battling cars of Nordell and Pashov. Quite a way up, but as them 2 are fighting on, Babin are hoping now with that clean air not too long before he catches them. So lap 16, and he's been on the back of these for a while now, but Nordell, even though in probably the slower car around here, doing ever so well to fend off from these two Porsches as both of them get a good run here. But look at them, all in a train there. You can't even see the Porsches behind the Mercedes. They're so close to one another. Pashov held up a bit by the Mercedes of Nordell. Babin has a look, darts for onside, darts to the other as Pashov goes defensive. Now, Nordell has to cut the front of the Porsche there, almost coming together with Pashov there. That allows Babin to try and have a line around the outside, but Nordell cutting that line off. Now coming here into turn 2, and there you see Babin up the inside of Pashov. Pashov's going to have the inside for turn 3. Babin, very hard corner to hang it round the outside there. Pashov makes the most of that to hold on to P4 as they come across this fast corner here. Still no way through for the Canadian. Now he doesn't want to be held up too much by these guys because he knows he has the two Bentleys up ahead that he has the pace to catch up with, but it depends how long it takes him to get past these guys as they all come across the curbs here into the S's. Now this is where the Mercedes' biggest weakness is. The Porsche, the rear engine, just sits so nicely to take these corners. As Nordell starts to pull a bit of a gap there as Pashov comes under threat from Babin. He's had to go a bit defensive through here as they come down into turn 12. Once again, no one quite close enough to make a move. But watch into turn 13 here. Pashov just kind of outbrakes himself ever so slightly, goes deep. And as the camera angle changes there, Babin up the inside. He's going to have the outside for turn 14, but he makes the move even before then. And Babin now gains that position on Pashov. He's now up into P4 and one spot away from that podium spot that's currently still being claimed by Nordell, but Babin has the pace to try and get that. Up ahead, there's Stanger and Watson. There was a 7-second gap at one point, but as the race is going on, Watson is slowly clawing that gap back down. The drivers really very different driving styles. Might be the same car and similar looking car, both of them being green. But Stanger seems to be fast on the fresh tyres, and Watson seems to be able to, you know, massage and caress those tyres to go even longer. So as Stanger pulled a big gap at the start of this stint, Watson really clawing it back now as the stint's going on, as he seemed to have more life in those tyres. Here behind is the battle for the next podium spot. Nordell, Babin and Pashov, those three in a little train with one another. Nordell still holding up the Porsche. Behind that is Robs. He's currently running by himself in P6. Behind him is Lechterman, but he had a early pit stop to fix the damage due to his crash on the start of the race. So Lechterman really trying to unlap himself here. So this is not for position. P7 is Prevot, obviously with the spin with Byrne. He kind of got away with that, and he's currently running in P7. Behind him in P8 is Runo. He's dropped a few places. P9 Bosman, and P10 Byrne hunting down Bosman, really closing in on him the last few laps. He'll be looking to try and get past the Ferrari as fast as possible. And rounding off everyone on the lead lap behind Byrne is Tan. Now he got a drive through quite early on for track limits. He dropped to the back of the pack, apart from Lechterman, who obviously served the early pit stop. So Tan now trying to make up the lost time due to having to serve that drive through. He's currently in P11, and once again we'll be looking to get that P10 overall point. Now, coming on to this lap, watch Babin all over the back of the Mercedes. Mercedes goes a bit deep. Babin trying to go to the outside. Not the easiest move to pull off around the outside of turn 14. So Babin has to slot in behind, and he gets so close. Really good exit. But like always, in a straight line, the Porsche gets a good start, but just doesn't have the straight line speed to make a move. Is he going to go for a dive up the inside? No, he's going to have to settle behind for now. But look how close he is to the back of that Mercedes. There's not much you can fit in between the rear bumper of the Mercedes and the front of the Porsche. As they come now into turn 2. And a bit of a gap has opened up to Pashov. Pashov still hanging on there. he will be looking for, you know, some sort of scrap between these two, giving him an opportunity. And, well, I say that's exactly what happened. Watch as they come into this fast left-hander over the hill. Nordell goes a bit wide. Babin goes to the outside. Nordell comes across, touches the front of the Porsche, and Babin does ever so well to keep control of the car. But all his hard work getting that one position, he loses it. But Pashov now going up the inside of the Mercedes, now has the outside for this corner. He's going to have the outside once again, but the Porsche, like I said, really good through this section. Hangs it around the outside, now has the inside, and up he goes into P3. And exactly like I said, he was waiting for a scrap between those two to give him an opportunity, and exactly that happened. And Pashov gains 2 positions there, up into P3 now on that overall podium, and he'll be looking to try and hang on to that great overtake on Nordell. Let's have a look at a replay of that incident. It was claimed as a racing incident after the race by the stewards. Let's have a look at exactly what happened. I think Nordell just kind of didn't see that there was an overlap between him and the Porsche. Comes across onto the racing line there, just touches the front of the Porsche. And unfortunately for Babin, he gets pushed out onto the runoff area and loses that position to Pashov, who then, as we can see from onboard, Babin now goes on to make the move on Nordell. And brilliant overtake it really was here. This is a nice view from on board the Canadian's Porsche, and yeah, the way he just hangs it around the outside, then has the inside, and he moves into P3 as Babin almost runs into the back of Nordell there. So lap 21, and Byrne finally catching the back of Preville, the car that spun him at the start of the race. Byrne will be looking not to have a repeat of that, but look at the size difference between these two cars. There couldn't be anything more different between the McLaren and the Bentley. One's low, mid/rear engine, one's front/mid engine, because all of these cars really have the engines behind the axle. They're all kind of mid engines, but the Bentley at the front, the McLaren at the rear. And as they come over the curbs, look how close Byrne is to the back of the Frenchman's McLaren as we look on board here. Now through this bit of the S's, this is where Bentley struggles a bit more. You see the McLaren open up a bit of a gap. But this next right-hander of Preville there just misses the apex. Byrne gets on it there through turn 11 down towards turn 12. And Byrne on the outside. Preville goes defensive, but just look at the grip Byrne has around the outside, and he just goes right around, has now the inside for turn 13, and he just parks that Bentley on the inside, and there's no way getting back past that. And Byrne moves up into P8, and a great overtaking move from him. And similar to Watson, it looks like has that driving style where he's able to look after those tyres and have decent pace as his wipers get going. He must have accidentally hit a button there as he was pulling off that overtake. Preville, though, currently in P9, but not too far behind. Bosman P10 and Tan in P11 right on the back of Bosman now. Has a little look. Bosman goes defensive, so Preville has to try and get a move on here, because if he does want that overall point, that would be absolutely fantastic result for an AM driver. He needs to try and keep these two, or at least one of these two cars of Bosman and Tan behind. So lap 24, and we're on board Nordell here. We'll go on board and just watch his steering as he comes through this right-hander here. And we saw the Mercedes do this a few times, either Tan or Nordell. Watch this. Oh, catch a snap of oversteer there. Has to catch it, but that allows Babin to swoop right around the outside and gain that position. And we saw Tan struggle with a bit of snaps of oversteer as Nordell runs really wide there. That'll be a track limit warning. But yeah, that bit of oversteer, snap oversteer that you get in the Mercedes, Nordell not the only one. It seems to be the setup for this car at this track. Like I said, not the best car track combination. And Babin gets that position back, and now he'll be on the hunt to try and get past the Porsche of Pashov up ahead and finally get past this little trio, well, and move on to the 2 Bentleys ahead. And lap 26 is when that happened, as we watched Pashov go quite wide there, Babin all over the back of him, and this probably the overtake of the race. Just watch as they come through the chicane of 6 and 7, gets a brilliant exit, and going into turn 8 here, look, just up the inside and just slots it in, absolutely inch perfect in front of the Porsche of Pashov, and what a move that is to put him on the overall podium. Into P3 he goes, and although with damage on his Porsche, he's been absolutely fantastic, and he'll be looking to try and hunt down the Bentleys ahead, as Pashov now having to go defensive from Nordell. Nordell trying to do what we saw Byrne do around the outside, but the Porsche just has that cornering ability, and Pashov being able to fend off the Swede for now. And he has to settle for P4 now, which is P2 in class, in silver class still. And he'll be trying to defend from Nordell behind him. So lap 29, we're getting towards the halfway mark of the race. The stint going towards the hour mark now. Stanger still in P1, but look how much the gap has closed. Watson now well within a second. And the sun nicely setting now as it gets late during the race. And yeah, the 2 green Bentleys, 1 and 2, and not much separating them. Like I said, Stanger seemed to have the pace on the fresh tyres, but Watson really quick on the used one. Pashov in P3, that's because Babin went for an early pit stop, fix that damage, have a slightly longer pit stop, fix that damage, but as soon as he gets out, he'll be on a heavy push. Nordell now in P4, Lechterman moves, well actually he's still in P12, but he'll be starting to unlap himself now as people start to pit. There's Babin in the pits repairing the damage. He'll be in P6 currently, obviously the first car to pit. Lechterman P7, sorry, Renault P7, Byrne P8, now coming around the final 2 corners. P9, Prevost. So for now, Prevost holding on to that P9 spot, but like I said, Bosman and Tan not too far behind, but he's done well so far to keep ahead of these 2 guys, 2 silver drivers as well. So great drive from Prevost so far to be able to keep these at bay, as Tan really looking for that overall point that he really wants. He's currently in P11, and he'll be looking to try and gain that position here as they come around the final corner. Watch Stanger into the pits. Stanger goes, the race leader, into the pits. Watson staying out. Now we know Watson can look after his tyres better, so how many more laps is he going to do on this tyre set? How many more laps can he push out of them and still have decent pace? Well, we will find out. And he stays out for at least 1 more lap. But he will have back markers up ahead that we saw there, and that will probably not be helpful for him. So lap 35 is when Watson decided to come in, and just watch as he's coming in here, just trying to carry as much speed as possible on 1 tyre, and almost gets it very wrong. He goes wide and just gets back into the pit lane before the wall comes. Could have ended in an absolute disaster, that. Heart and mouth mode for him, gets it stopped in time for the pit. Now he stayed out quite a while, and in hindsight after the race he did say he wishes he pitted a few laps earlier, but he did pit. Prevost and Bosman decided to go for 1 more lap. These 2 going for a really long first stint. Prevost still in P9, well, it'll be P6 now, but P9 net position, unless these long laps he's doing, these overcut he's doing, can gain him any position. Watson finally stopped, quite a slow pit stop, didn't find his pit box perfectly the first time, but finally gets jacked up, tyres starting to get done. Byrne coming across now, he's done his pit stop, so he's going to be unlapping himself on Watson now. Currently running in P9, he's looking to try and move up the order. Now Rob's behind, but more importantly Stanger behind Rob. So here comes Stanger down the straight. Where is Watson? Has he done his pit stop yet? Or has he not? As Stanger moves to the inside to lap Rob's. And there is Watson. And yeah, he's only just come out the pits now. And yeah, not a great pit stop for him. The overcut didn't really work. But he will be on much fresher tyres towards the end of the race. And like we said, he can look after his tyres a lot better. So although it's going to be at a push, we've seen it do it in the first stint. He closed a 7-second gap, and we'll have to see once he comes across the timing line of Sector 1, which is literally up here. And it's a 6.5 second gap, so 6.5 seconds separating them. Well, that's something that Watson can definitely close up as the race goes on, and it'll be very interesting to see if he manages to do so. There's Tan behind him on track, but what we're looking for is Babin here. So he does come out of ahead of Pashov, even after fixing the damage on his car. He does come ahead of Pashov P3, and as he crosses the line, the timing line, he's 21 seconds behind Watson. So another car that has a lot of even bigger gap to make up. But if there's one person that can make up a 21-second gap, it is Babin. Pashov not too far behind in P4, but he is well clear of the Mercedes of Nordell in P5 after the round of pit stops. So these guys now starting to separate out as you know, they have different pace from one another. Babin being the quickest, then Pashov, then Nordell. These guys starting to spread out. So on to lap 43, and that's actually the Bentley of Byrne in the background, because Stanger, on the fresh tyres, like we said, currently has the fastest lap of the race, and he's opened his gap to 8 seconds over Watson right now. 8 seconds. There's Byrne. The Bentley's on track in a row, but Byrne obviously being lapped. But there's the other Bentley, the more important one, of Watson. 8 seconds back now, so he's lost 2 seconds to Stanger. So it's going to be even more difficult as we get towards the half an hour mark for Watson to actually catch up to the Dutchman. But it's not impossible as Robs comes through. He's in P8, so he's hunting down Byrne, but Byrne has better pace, so he should be able to keep that position. There is Babin. He's still 20 seconds behind when he crossed the line, so Babin not really gaining much on Watson, and Pashov is a further 15 seconds behind Babin, so he's starting to fall back on Babin. Quite a lonely race for him at the moment. Another guy having a lonely race is the Swedish driver Nordell in his Mercedes. Almost a lap up on Byrne, but quite a way back from Pashov. Now, Privot, this is one of the important drivers, let's say, we're keeping an eye on. He's currently in P9, so he's holding on to P9 well, but still a long way to go. Behind him is Letkeman, and now this time not actually a lap down. He's in P10, so Letkeman for position now. That early pit stop, he's recovered from it really well, and having a long pit stop and starting at the back of the grid, really a round of applause to him, the way he's made up positions. Tan in P11. He's looking to make up his positions, and rounding off the grid in P12 is Bosman. Yeah, he's fixed the damage now that he had, and he'll be looking to try and make up ground on the cars ahead. Lap 47, well, like I said, the car's starting to spread out a bit, so no on-track action, but some action that would change positions is Renault on 3 track warnings already, and just watch him as he exits this corner. All 4 wheels off, and that gave him a drive-through penalty for exceeding track limits. Not the first driver to do so in this race, we had a few. But yeah, quite a way ahead of Byrne. Byrne was gaining on him by a little bit. Not enough maybe to catch him by the end of the race, but with the drive-through now, it would be very, very interesting to see where Renault would come out in comparison to the Bentley of Byrne, and even Robs, who's not too far behind Byrne. So Renault into the pits he comes now to serve his drive-through. He was sitting comfortably there in P6, and even more comfortably in P3 in the silver class, and the 2 drivers behind him, both silver drivers, so that would drop him off the silver podium as Stanger goes through here at the lead of the race. Now 8.5 seconds, and now as Watson crossed the line there, That's a big gap for Watson to try and close down. But not improbable, but very hard. Now, as we watch Watson come through the first complex, where's Byrne? There's Byrne. So Byrne goes through, and Robs also goes through. So Robs and Byrne quite a bit in the end, but Robs, more importantly, ahead of Runo after his drive through. So Byrne up into P3 in class, Robs P4, and Runo P5 in class now, because the class positions are what really is the most important for these guys. So yeah, but Runo dropping several positions now. He'll be in P8 now overall, so he still gets some overall points, but not as many as he would have done had he managed to not get that drive-through penalty. But he's still close to Robs. Byrne quite a way up, and he had the more pace out of these three, Byrne, so he'll probably start to pull away. But can Runo get back past the Canadian's Ferrari ahead of him? Lap 49, and well, intense battle here for Prévost and Tan. Like I said, Prévost P10 now, hanging on for that final points position, and behind him another driver that really wants an overall point. One, because he's an AM driver and it would be absolutely incredible to see an AM driver get overall points, and one because he's come so close. He's finished in P11 on so many occasions, and he's currently in P11. And down the straight they go. These cars fairly matched in a straight line. Now, Prévost goes defensive. He's going to have to defend for his life here. An AM driver against a silver driver. Prévost breaks nice and late into it. Tan tries with the switchback, but the McLaren has the grip around the outside. And for now, the Frenchman hanging on to P10. But how much longer? He needs to minimize his mistakes, and he goes a bit deep there, but gets on the power nicely to cut back. And for now, hold on, you can see the numbers, the orange number for AM and the yellow number for silver on Tan's car. But watch as they come through this fast left-hander of turn 4. Tan gets it kind of wrong, slides out, tries to catch the slide, overcorrects too much, and spins off. And Prévost, well, a big sigh of relief from him, I think. As he comes over here, we see the green flag. Tan gets going again, managed to keep it out of the barriers, luckily for him. But Prévost, well, I think a big sigh of relief he'll have there. And he'll be really pleased that he is not under pressure for at least a few more laps now, as Tan will have to try and close the gap that he's lost due to that spin. But yeah, Prévost, for now, holds on to P10 and that final points position that everyone seems to want. So we'll have a look at what happened to Tan on board the rear view camera of Prévost as they come into turn 4, and it's just a case of what we saw with Nordel's car, that snap of oversteer. Yeah, he comes through, gets a bit sideways, tries to catch it, and just snaps the other way, and luckily for him, gets the car slowed down onto the grass just in time to avoid hitting the barriers. And Prévost, like I said, will be happy. But not the first time we've seen, especially at that corner, we saw Nordel's car snap on him earlier, but very similar situation for Nordel as we have a look here for his car. Quite a few laps ago when he was just behind Babin and Pashov. Just watch as they come through this corner here. Nordel sideways, snap of oversteer, and slides towards the cameraman, and somehow, just like Tan, avoids the barrier. Very close call, and he manages to get going again. But yes, like I said, that Mercedes seems to have that really easy snap of oversteer when you try and catch a slide that makes it very difficult to drive on this track. So lap 60 as the sun is starting to fully set now. You can see there just a orange kind of fog and mist in the background. And Watson, there he is in shot. Like we said, 8 seconds. And if anyone could look after the tyres and close that gap, well, Watson, we saw in the first stint, look after his tyres ever so well. And he has closed that gap. 4 seconds now between the two of them. And he's halved it. And with around 10 laps to go, it's going to be difficult. But as the laps go on, Stanger gets slower and Watson manages to hold the same pace every lap. So he seems to have a lot of life left in those tyres as they come through turn 4. They're really nice and fast. Behind them, Babin, well, he's around 21 seconds back still. So he's really not gained anything on Watson. Watson and Babin putting in similar lap times, a few tenths of one another. So both of these two, the fastest cars on tracks. But unfortunately for Babin, that means really no net gain and no net loss, just staying the same distance behind. Behind him on track there is Robs. He's currently running in P10. So he's in P10 on that final points position at the moment. So he lost that position to Runo that we saw battling. Next is Byrne. Obviously, everyone kind of mixed up on track here on different laps. Byrne's in P6 as it stands. Well behind Nordell, but well ahead of P7. Bosman's in P11. A bit of damage to the rear of his car as he was involved in a collision with Tan. But he's hanging on. And at the back there in P11, Pashov in P4, but quite a way back, about 20 seconds back from, or even more actually, 25 seconds back from Babin. There's Runo in P7, so he, like we said, quite a way back from Byrne, but got past Robs and nicely by himself in P7. Some solid points for him, and P4 in class, that'll be good for him as well. P5 is Nordell. Again, someone else that's really, well, I think everyone really here. If they're not on by themselves on track, it's with someone that's on a different lap to them. So yeah, no one really fighting for position. Behind him is Letterman in P8. Another driver that's done really well to recover. And the last car on track, but not last overall, obviously, is the McLaren of Prevot that we haven't seen yet. There he is. He's currently running in P9, well ahead of P10. So, bar a drive-through or a big mistake, he should be able to get not only one overall point, but he should be able to get two, which would be absolutely fantastic for him. The one car we're missing here is Tan. He decided to retire from the race after a few incidents and some more drive-throughs and penalties. He thought it was best not to finish the race. So we're down one car, but Prevot for now in P9, and bar any major mistakes, it would be an incredible result for the Frenchman in his beautiful Gulf liveried McLaren. But at the front, so the only on-track battle going on is between the two green Bentleys, the invitational entry of Stanger and the silver class leader of Watson. On to lap 66, the sun fully set now, and these two ever so close. Watson now well within a second. He's really gained massively, and in the dark, not the easiest to tell these two cars apart from the purple auxiliary lights of Watson. Just keep an eye out for those purple auxiliary lights. That's really the difference. You can tell Watson running those classic purple lights from season 1 that he ran on the Mercedes, and now he has it on the Bentley. Because in the dark, not the easiest to pick these two apart, but as it stands, Stanger still ahead as they come through the corner here with probably around 2-3 laps to go. Watson trying to push Stanger into a mistake as we go on the rear view camera of the Bentley of Stanger as he comes out of here. And like I said, these drivers, even though the same car, different driving styles. Stanger more aggressive driver, fast on fresh tyres, but wears the tyres out. Watson seems to be nicer on the throttle, a lot smoother inputs, can make his tyres last longer, but doesn't have the raw pace that the Dutchman has. Coming through the S's here, you see the first few parts, Stanger seems to have the advantage, but as they come down here, just Watson just so much later on the brakes, and just watch how he nails that apex over the curve and gets the Bentley really close. And then watch this final, this is where you see that Watson has so much more grip in his tyres, almost running into the back of the Bentley ahead of him. And into the final corner. This is the one corner that Watson was struggling with. Seems to get a fairly decent entry, but not the greatest exit there. And for now has to settle for P2, flashing his lights and saying, I'm looking to make a move, as they come down into turn 1. And look how close he is to the back of that Bentley. Watson really close. We're going to stick with these for the last few laps, because I think there's one more lap after this one. As they come through once again, watch Watson, that really tight line with those fresh tyres. He's right on the back of him. Well, I say fresh, but he just seems to, you know, have more life as the sparks fly out the back of the Bentley as it drops onto the road there, as he takes the curb. Watson being slightly more aggressive now. He knows he has more life in his tyres. He can be more aggressive, and just look how close he is to the back of Stanger's Bentley as they come through turn 5 towards turn 6 and 7. On board Watson now, and doesn't take the curbs too aggressively there, but gets a decent exit, and now through the S's. Watch through 8, 9, bit of a twitch there, through turn 10 now, flat out, brakes for turn 11, gets on the apex, on the power nice and early, and yeah, watch him, just brakes a little bit later, gets the apex through turn 12, and he's so close. Here now a slight, well, not really a mistake, just he usually brakes later and almost runs into the back of the Bentley there, has to take avoiding action. And unfortunately for him, that opens up the gap slightly, which is annoying because a run down into turn 1 would have been what he wanted. And yeah, that gap opening up to around a second now, not in Watson's favour. But let's stay on board Watson a bit longer as we come into turn 1, because just watch how much later he is able to brake into turn 1. And just look at the gap that he manages, and nails the apex as well. Really on the power, nice and early coming out. But on the final lap of the race now, Watson really needs Stanger to make a mistake, because it's not the easiest track to overtake at, especially when you're in the same machinery. We've seen Babin do it, but even Babin struggled to get past slower cars like Nordell and Pasha, but he eventually managed after several laps, and Watson has one more lap now to give it a go. And watch through this left-hander here. Stanger gets it all wrong, gets a big slide on. Watson gets alongside, has to tap the brakes to avoid colliding with it. Watson was going to poke his nose there and try and make that the opportunity, but Stanger sideways there, and Watson had to back out of it. Unfortunately for him, that one opportunity to overtake, he kind of had to play it on the safe side. Sparks flying, runs a bit on the gravel there. Through the S's they come, and Watson so close to the back of that Bentley, but just not being able to force a mistake. Stanger doing really well to not make a mistake and not crack under pressure. And Watson now, great exit, flashing the lights once again, has a little look, but just not quite close enough to make a move. And into the final 2 corners, which, unless Stanger makes a mistake, unfortunately for Watson, I think he's going to have to settle for P2. Now, it is P2 on track. He will get the overall win for the league, because Stanger, an invitational entry, won't gain any points. So Watson will get another overall win on paper, but he would have loved to do it on track. And a good exit there, gets a bit sideways. And Stanger manages to hold on for P1, and Watson has to settle for P2. But what a great battle between these two Bentleys we had there at the end of the race. A great show, and a great way to end season 2 of the BRT Solo League. And Watson comes to a stop, flashing his lights, probably as a thank you for some good racing with Stanger. Prevot comes home next across the line, P9. He does get that amazing day. You see the lights of Babin, who stops on the race line there. He got P3 in the end, so good podium for him in the end. Unfortunately, due to the collision at the start, didn't close in. But Prevot, those 2 overall points, absolutely fantastic. So let's have a look at Watson, a replay here. This is on the final lap when Stanger had that moment through turn 4 on board Watson here. Just watch Stanger as he misses the apex, gets sideways. Watson's going to go to the left, and then Stanger swings a bit across. Watson has to back out of it. Yeah, that was probably the best opportunity for Watson to make a move, but yeah, just kind of played it safe. Didn't want to, you know, rear end the Bentley and both of them get taken out, or at least I don't think he wanted to win due to a collision. So yeah, unfortunately for Watson, couldn't get quite past. We'll see it from a different angle here from the rear of Stanger's car. You'll see how it slides to the left, and he catches the slide, and it just swings back across the track, and Watson has to back out of it. As Watson here, watch, nails the apex, goes across Stanger there, swings across, and Watson unfortunately could not find a way through, as that big Bentley is yeah, not the easiest car to get past. And unfortunately Watson P2 on track, but he will be happy with another overall win for the league, and it well deserved, as he does some donuts celebrating that silver championship win. Prevot, fellow Frenchman Prevot, joins him, and His fellow Bentley driver Byrne also joining him there. Everyone doing some donuts as it is the final race of the season, especially those three. Both Byrne getting P3 in silver class, Prevost getting those overall points, and Watson obviously sealing the silver championship and an overall win. Absolutely fantastic by those three drivers and well-deserved celebration. So let's have a look at the final race results. So Stanger does get the fastest lap and the race win. Like I said, Watson will get the race win in terms of points, and Babin will get the fastest lap point as he was the fastest driver on track out of the guys racing in the league. So Stanger after 68 laps, P1. Watson 0.4 seconds behind in the end, but we saw how close he got to that. Babin rounds off the podium in P3, 19.5 seconds back in the end. He managed to claw a bit of time back, but he was a bit too far back. Pashov P4, Nordell P5. He's the last of the cars on the lead lap, and minute and 8 seconds back. First of the cars a lap down is Byrne P6 ahead of Renault P7, who good recovery after his drive through. Letterman, great recovery from starting at the back and obviously having that collision at the start of the race and a hefty time penalty. He's P8. Prevost, obviously amazing result in P9. He's 2 laps down. Robs P10, that final points goes to Robs, and he'll be happy with that. He's also 2 laps down. Bosman in P11, and Tan obviously DNFing once again. Does not manage to get a point in the overall standings. Very, very gutting for him. But yeah, so the big news here, Watson will be classed as the race winner, and obviously Prevost 2 points for being P9 overall, an amazing result. And the silver final race results, obviously like we said, Watson wins the silver class 45.5 seconds ahead of Pashov in the end. What a gap that was. Watson was just on another level today with Babin and Stanger. Pashov obviously P2, Byrne gets that podium in P3 a lap down, Renault P4, Lechterman P5, Robs gets P6, which will be crucial in the standings that he does get some points, 2 laps down, Bosman P7, and Tan P8, but classed as a DNF. Well, there's only one AM driver today, so very easy to look at this. It's 36 laps completed, and it's Brice Prevost that manages to win the AM class. The Frenchman will be happy with that, but maybe being the only AM driver is why he was able to focus on himself and get an absolutely amazing result in the overall race. So, final driver classifications for the overall. Bobby Matthews, like we knew, wins. He ends on 155 points, winning the championship. Babin seals P2 with that great race today. 118 points for him, coming P3. Nordell just manages to hold on to third. 88 points. He's third overall, just 4 points ahead of Watson in the end. It would have been spectacular to see a silver driver on the overall podium, something that's very unlikely to happen. But Watson, great season for him. P4, and most definitely will be a pro driver next season. Another driver that will be pro next season is Ruslan Pashov, the Bulgarian, moves up to 5th on 59 points. He jumps ahead of Fantozzi, Fashard, Stoop, and Beaches, who obviously didn't race today, so they all moved down 1 spot. Vigard also didn't race, so Vigard Johansson remains in P10 on 42, another driver that we will most definitely see in the pro class next season. More drivers that didn't race: Wallace, Stosic, Martinovic, and Murray, so they remain in the same position as always. And a newcomer to the top 15 is Renault. He finishes on 21, just ahead of Herkaba, who was on 18. With Herkaba not racing, Renault sneaks into the top 15 overall. And considering he was an AM driver at the start of the season and got promoted after race 2, a really solid result for him. Silver class, well, the only class that was not sealed prior to this race, and now it is Watson who seals the Silver Driver Championship on 156 points. Pashov comes second on 122, and it is Robs that seals the bronze medal in P3. Obviously, Johansson and Herkaba not racing today means that Robs, any points he would have got, promotes him to that 3rd position. a good, consistent season for him. Hasn't always been at the top, but always consistently scoring points, and that's why he's managed to get that P3. Great season for him. Johansson and Herkaba next. Johansson finishing ahead of Herkaba purely on class wins, as they both finish on 77. More drivers finishing on the same points are Esteban and Byrne, both on 57. Esteban's race win at Suzuka means he finishes ahead of Byrne. And even more, Leiter and Runo both finishing just 1 point back on 56 points each. Leiter with a race win at a class win at Nürburgring finishes ahead of Runo. Tan moves down to P10 on 53. He rounds off the top 10. Bosman, although scoring some points, no, not scoring some points actually, P11. Scoring some points in the silver category actually, yes. He finishes though in P11, 2 points back. Letzkeman solidly finishes in P12 on 44, well ahead of the drivers behind him. And the AM driver classification, well, change even in this class. Every class having changes after the final race. Yi obviously sealed the championship a few races ago, 165 points. But Prevot's class win means he finishes in P2, only 1 point ahead of the Dutchman Cupers. So brilliant for Prevot. Probably his best weekend in the BRT league. A class win, P9 qualifying, P9 race finish, and P2 in the championship. Great weekend for him. Cupers though, still a solid season for him on 140 points. Chin on 106 in P4 ahead of Joe R, Volts and Bassino. Those top 4 drivers solidly appearing in majority of the races this season. Round of applause for them. They've been really consistent and good battling between them this season, and they've been very good. So I think a round of applause for those top 4 drivers in the AM class. They've had a really good season. And lastly, the manufacturer classification. So the manufacturer championship, well, changes here as well. Aston Martin Racing, like predicted, do manage to seal the manufacturer championship. AMR on 254 points in the end. Porsche move ahead of Ferrari. Porsche Motorsport on 231 in the end. But they also, a big round of applause, they have the most points per driver out of any of the teams. So their drivers have all solidly been scoring points every race, and well-deserved second place for them. Ferrari Competizione GT in P3 on 186. Good season from them. Mercedes and Bentley both move ahead of McLaren. Mercedes on 110, Bentley only 8 points back in the end on 101. Great season for both of those. 2 teams with only 3 drivers, but 2 teams that have solidly been scoring points with some solid drivers like Nordell for Mercedes and Watson for Bentley. They've done ever so well, and also other drivers like Stosic and Byrne in those 2 manufacturers also getting some points. So a good battle between them 2, and it's Mercedes that just managed to scrape out on top. McLaren on 99 moved down to P6, and Lamborghini, Squadra Corsa and Audi Sport obviously in P7 and 8, as they no longer had drivers representing them after a few rounds, so they finish on 10 and 6 points. And that is the manufacturer championship sealed, and the manufacturer classification at the end of BRT Solo League Season 2. Hopefully we'll see some more manufacturers like BMW, HRC, Lexus and Nismo next season, and have all of them represented. So Bobby Matthews, overall champion, a big round of applause for him. Evan Watson seals the silver championship. And lastly, Tim Yee, AM champion. Those 3 drivers, big congratulations to them. And obviously a big congratulations to all the Aston Martin drivers, AMR manufacturer champions at the end. And that is the end of BRT Solo League Season 2. The fireworks are going all night long, everyone celebrating. And until BRT Solo League Season 3, I hope everyone has a good off season, and we'll see you next time.